Greetings YouTube, this is Toy Customizer Wakeangel2K1 bringing you a review of the 6-inch classic Lion-O figure. Now this isn't the first classic Lion-O figure that was made for the modern toy line. If you recall, when the line originally launched, when the Thundercats cartoon was new, they had an 8-inch one that was supposed to be a big special edition. I believe it was even a San Diego Comic-Con figure. The thing is that the 8-inch scale, which I believe would translate into 1/9, isn't really as popular among toy collectors as the 1/6 scale. So it seems a last-ditch effort to keep the Thundercats brand relevant in today's day and age was to put out a modern, well, they're still the classic versions, but 6-inch scale Lion-O and Mum-Ra figures. This being Lion-O. I do not have Mum-Ra. This is because, you know, a 6-inch scale shelf is more popular and more people will be likely to buy it than the 8-inch one. So, how is the 6-inch Lion-O figure? Well, let's give him a look. Well, this is Bandai of America that made this figure. And he really reminds me of those new steroid rangers, you know, the white and red rangers that are all big and burly and muscular, which is weird for Power Rangers because Power Rangers usually have much more slim physiques. But, you know, the look looks silly for a Power Ranger, but it works for Lion-O. So there's that at least. And I gotta say, this really does look like a good Lion-O figure. I mean, look, he has a great face. All the details are sculpted. Great eyes. His little onesie is completely intact. His boots. And they seem to have solved a major problem that the regular Thundercats toy line had. I'll just zoom out a little and show you what I'm talking about. As you recall from an earlier review, here is the modern Thundercats Cheetara. And as you can see, standing next to Lion-O, she's a little bit shorter than him, which she should be, considering that Lion-O is some big guy, and she's just a regular-sized lady. But when you recall, the pegs that held together her articulation points, like in her shoulder and her elbow, they're black and clash with her regular paint job. This is not the case in the new Lion-O figure. As you can see, the peg is completely hidden in his shoulder, and in other places where it's visible, it actually is made to match his skin tone, which is a good thing. And this continues down onto his knees as well, but then they messed up by doing the same thing to his ankles, where it really clashes and stands out with his feet. I wouldn't complain about this, except that the fact that the toy retails for $20.99. Actually, no, not even. $21.99. This is a $22 figure. I mean, that's a lot of money for a 6-inch figure. I think that a fair asking price for a figure like this would be somewhere between $15 and $18. $18.50 at the very most. You know, the cost of a Transformers Deluxe. But you know, you're gonna charge us You're gonna charge us $22 for a figure. The least you could do is paint in those pegs, and that doesn't even really come up to. That doesn't even really. I mean, look at this. Oh my God, the screw holes. His back is just covered in big visible screw holes. Could they not do anything to cover that up a little bit? I mean, that is shameful. As for the quality of the plastic, it's not bad, but he feels very light. He doesn't have a lot of mass to him. He's obviously made out of he's obviously kind of hollow inside. He doesn't feel cheap, but he doesn't really feel high quality either. Okay, so those are some negatives. Let's talk about other stuff. Let's talk about articulation. He has a ball jointed head, but it feels a bit limited, so it can turn and look slightly up and down and little else. He's shoulders, universal shoulders, very good range. He has a bicep swivel, which is nice. Only a single jointed elbow, but the way the muscles are sculpted, you get full 90-degree clearance. Ball jointed wrist, and the claw shield has a nice sheath for his for the small sword of omens. I'll talk about that a little bit later. He has a ball jointed torso and a ball joint waist underneath that, so he has a good ab crunch and movement around here. Moving down to his hips, he has universal hips, which is good. He has a thigh swivel, although the way that this leg muscle is sculpted that comes up above it, it can get in the way of certain poses. Like when you put him in a sitting pose, you have to kind of twist his leg around so the muscle goes around his onesie sculpt. He has a really nice double jointed knee, no complaints about that. And it doesn't really break the sculpt too much when you bend it all the way. He has a swivel here at his boot, which is very good. And he has ankle tiltage. Not as extreme as Chitara's ankle tiltage, but it's there and appreciated. And his ankle does this. So yeah, in terms of articulation, he's pretty okay. Although it seems that Bandai of America was really trying to make something almost Figma-like. The keyword being almost. Like, if you wanted him to do something like bring his hands in front of himself to hold the Sword of Omens, it's kind of hard to explain, so I'm going to bring out an actual Figma. Samus. You see, Samus has these double ball joints on her shoulders, like, so she can move them forward, which makes crossed arm poses look a lot more natural. So, that's due to the fact that her shoulders can do this. If Lionel's shoulder could have been engineered to do this a little bit, then it would have really helped with some poses that people want to put him in. Since he lacks it, it makes it feel like, you know, like, it's just not as good. And, you know, that's, in an adult collector's market, that's really going to be something that people will notice. Okay, so let's talk accessories, alright? We see Lionel, let's get him off to the side for a bit. Let's take a look at the Sword of Omens. This is the smaller form, and really nice. It's really nicely sculpted. The Eye of Thundera is painted very nicely in its cat eye form. Only problem is, this is an adult collector's themed figure. So why is it made out of this stupid floppy safety rubber that they use for children's toys? I mean, come on, Bandai, make up your minds. You charge $22 for this figure. For the record, I didn't actually pay $22. I used my Toys R Us rewards and a coupon and got it for half that price. So yeah, if I paid full 22 bucks only to find that the Sword of Omens was made out of a squinky, I would have been really upset. And let's take a quick look at the box. Again, this is showing how it's a very nice box, showing how it's trying to be kind of a semi-Figma. Very nice box art. Shows the best attempt it could get at having Lionel holding the sword in the iconic pose, where he's holding it above his head. Note it can't go all the way up there. You may notice that collect them all, coleccioneles tus, coleccionar a todos. Yeah, this is instead of making different card art for each region that they sell in, they just print all 3 languages. It's a cost-saving measure that shows that they don't really have too much faith in this line's ability to make money. And as you can see, the only other classic figure is Mum-Ra, and they still have advertisements for the modern cartoon figures, which is kind of pointless seeing as how I doubt you can find these in stores anymore. Although Mum-Ra does look pretty awesome. The rest of Lionel's accessories include an awakened Sword of Omens made out of that same pathetic plastic, which is pre-bent by the packaging, so it doesn't really look as cool as it should. Although, if it wasn't bent, it would be very nice, because you can see it has the profile of the cat head and very nice details sculpted in. He also comes with an alternate right hand and two alternate right hands and one alternate left hand, and a blue thing. We'll see what that does in a moment. So, yeah, it's like very much like a Figma. He has a swapping hand gimmick. So what can the hands do? Well, let's start by pulling off his claw shield, revealing that the hands kind of just pop onto a ball joint thing, and pop. Okay, very simple. It goes right on. Although the way that it connects, it should have gone in a little bit deeper, because the wrist seems to pinch off just a little bit too much. So what is this blue thing? Well, it's actually meant to store the claw shield on. There's a ball at the end. You push it into the claw shield like that, and then it has a peg which goes into this hole on Lionel's hip. So you can put the claw sheath on his side. Then you put the miniature Sword of Omens in there. Come on. It's a tight fit. And there you go. Lionel has the claw shield at his side. Although it kind of gets in the way of his hand. Well, you know, you can work your way around that. Also, it really kind of interferes with his left leg. Like, if you try to move it out, that happens. This is made out of a really stiff plastic, and it's... the sword should have been made out of this plastic, and this little blue thing should have been made out of this plastic. They got it backwards. I cannot believe how incompetent they can be in choosing the plastics for different parts of the figure. I mean, it's almost like they got some memos switched. Also, with the swapping hands, it makes me wish that there was also a swapping face, because they gave him this really intense roaring face, which looks cool, but if I wanted to put him in a more calm display, like you know, Lionel wasn't always roaring and going into battle. If you remember the original series, Lionel spent quite a lot of time just, you know, chilling out and talking really calmly. He was, you know, he wasn't always like this, so it's kind of disappointing that I can't swap this head out for a more neutral expression. Alright, so let's see, how does he hold the Sword of Omens? I mean, you're going to want him to hold the Sword of Omens, right? So let's take that off. Let's see how he looks, and you just gotta put the sword into his hand. And, oh, yeah. He doesn't really grip the sword very well with his hands. Like, you can balance it in there for poses, I guess. It's fine as long as you don't move him or shake him too much. Let's see. He does have these... His two alternate left and right hands do look like they're sculpted to be holding hands. Except when you look, the hilt of the Sword of Omens is a hell of a lot bigger than the holding things hand are designed to grip. I mean, you can... The hands are... The hand just hit me in the face. The hands are slightly flexible, and you could squeeze them open and force the sword in there. It's really hard, though. I wouldn't even recommend doing this while they're attached to the figure. So yeah, you can force it in to the hand like that. Then let's swap that hand out. So there you go, he's holding the sword. Okay, he's holding it very firmly. It's just really hard to get the sword in there. And again, this is where I said that extra shoulder movement would have been appreciated, because the bicep swivels and the ball-jointed wrists just aren't quite enough to do the two-handed sword poses you want. Like The one where he's holding the sword over his head and roaring "Ho!" Which, if I was ever to have Lion-O in a single static pose, it would be that one. And this is as close as I can get it. If I tried to make his arm go up any higher, then his other hand wouldn't be able to reach it. That is a real shame. Like, if anything this figure needed, it was just a little bit more shoulder articulation. So, yeah, that's unfortunate. Although, I suppose if you're willing to make a few compromises, there's still plenty of great posing options you can have with the sword and his arms the way they are. It's just, like, the most famous iconic pose used on almost all the DVD box arts that you'll ever see from Thundercats is the thing that he can't do. So, that's just unfortunate. I wish I could say more nice things about this figure. I mean, from the front, the sculpt is really great. And it looks like they put a lot of loving attention and detail into his paint and his sculpt. Except that he has pathetically visible screw holes and those pegs that don't match his boot color. I mean, I wouldn't nitpick. Those may sound like nitpicks, but for a figure that asked $22, like almost as much as a Figma, and that's just it. It's like they tried to make a Lion-O Figma, but all they really came up with was a cheap knockoff of a Figma. And I'm afraid that a lot of high-end adult toy collectors just aren't gonna buy it. That's unfortunate. It's really not something I would give to a kid, but it's not something that an adult collector would really feel they're getting their money's worth for either. It's really sad, but it's just not that good. It's merely okay, which for Lion-O is a real disappointment. Oh well. This is Toy Customizer Wakeangel 2001 signing off.